You ever watch two guys on the same team start arguing, and suddenly, without meaning to, they expose the problem they've been trying to hide? That's what happened here. Because when the pressure gets real, when the questions get sharp, the cracks don't come from the outside, they come from within. Scripture tells us, "For there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not be known." Say, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Not a staged debate, not some outsider attacking. Dawah bros fighting over an Islamic dilemma that simply won't go away. And here's the thing. When people are forced to choose between defending a system and admitting the truth, the heart always shows itself. Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." So let's look at what happens when the dilemma becomes unavoidable and the gospel starts shining through the confusion. Sometimes the most revealing moments aren't when two sides are debating, but when people on the same side start struggling with their own answers. That's what makes this topic so important, because the questions we're looking at today aren't just religious arguments. For the internet, they touch something much deeper: the human need for truth, for certainty, for a foundation that can actually hold when life gets heavy. We all know what it's like to face moments where beliefs aren't just ideas anymore, when fear shows up, when doubt whispers, when you realize that what you've trusted has to be more than tradition or emotion, it has to be true. Scripture tells us, "Test all things, hold fast what is good." God isn't threatened by honest questions. In fact, he invites them because he is the God of light, not confusion. And when we watch conversations like this, where even the most confident voices begin to clash over an unresolved dilemma, it reminds us of something the Bible has always said: the heart longs for clarity, and only God can truly provide it. Jesus didn't come to offer a system to defend. He came to offer himself. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life." So as we walk through this together, keep that in mind. This isn't about winning points. It's about seeing what happens when truth presses in, and why the hope of Christ stands firm when everything else starts to shake. One of the strangest things to watch is what happens when someone is absolutely confident until they're not. We've all seen it. A person speaks with total certainty, like nothing could ever shake them. And then one question lands. One inconsistency shows up. One crack appears in the foundation. And suddenly the confidence isn't confidence anymore. It's panic or defensiveness or silence. And that's not just a religious issue. That's a human issue, because every one of us builds our lives on something. Maybe it's a worldview. Maybe it's a set of rules. Maybe it's a tradition we inherited. Maybe it's our own ability to control things. But eventually, life does what life always does: it tests the foundation. Jesus talked about this in the clearest way possible. He said, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock." And then he describes the storm. The rain falls. The floods come. The winds blow. And the only thing that matters in that moment is not how impressive the house looked, but what it was built on. That's the spiritual principle. Certainty that is built on anything other than Christ will crack. You can build on intellect. It will crack. You can build on religious performance. It will crack. You can build on community approval. It will crack. You can build on a system that depends on never asking the wrong questions. It will crack, because storms don't ask permission. And here's the thing: God is not calling you to fragile certainty. He's calling you to solid truth. The Bible doesn't tell us to pretend. It tells us to come into the light. Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say, "I give you a truth." He didn't say, "Here's a set of arguments." He said, "I am the truth." So when certainty cracks, it reveals what you were actually trusting. And that can be uncomfortable, but it can also be mercy, because God often allows the cracks to show us that we were leaning on something that could never hold our weight. Think about daily life. People do this all the time. Someone builds their identity on success, and then failure hits. Someone builds their peace on relationships, and then betrayal comes. Someone builds their hope on comfort, and then suffering arrives. And suddenly the question isn't theoretical anymore. Paul tells us, no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. That's not poetic language. That's reality. If Christ is not the foundation, you're building on something temporary, something shifting, something that cannot carry the eternal weight of your soul. And the invitation of the gospel is not, try harder to hold it together. The invitation is, come to the rock. Peter calls Jesus the living stone chosen by God and precious, sah. So what does that look like practically? It means when doubts come, you don't hide from God, you bring them to Him. It means when questions arise, you don't cling to pride, you cling to Christ. It means your confidence is not in never being shaken, but in the one who cannot be shaken. Hebrews says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. Everything else shifts, culture shift, arguments shift, people shift, you shift, but Christ does not. And that's why truth must be built on Him, because when the storms come, He is still there, steady, faithful, calling you deeper, not into fear, but into clarity. One of the most misunderstood ideas in Christianity is that faith means turning your brain off, like God is up in heaven saying, just don't think too much, don't ask questions, don't examine anything, just accept it. That's not biblical. That's not Christianity. That's not the God of Scripture. The Bible doesn't tell you to be gullible. It tells you to be discerning. Paul writes us, test all things, hold fast what is good does. That is an astonishing command because Paul is not speaking to skeptics on the outside. He's speaking to believers. He's saying, don't just absorb claims because someone said them. Don't follow ideas because they sound spiritual. Test them. Why? Because truth can handle examination. Lies can't. The gospel is not fragile. Jesus is not nervous about scrutiny. Christianity is not a house of cards that collapses when someone asks a hard question. Jesus Himself constantly invited people to see, to hear, to understand. He said, 5. If anyone is willing to do God's will, he will know whether the teaching is from God. In other words, truth is not something you avoid looking at closely. Truth is something you walk toward. And that matters right now. Because we live in a world overflowing with voices. Everyone is claiming something. Social media claims, religious claims, political claims, personal claims. People telling you, this is the way, this is the truth, this is what you should believe. And if you don't test anything, you will be tossed around like a leaf in the wind. Paul warns about that, so that we may no longer be children, tossed to and fro by the waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine. That's what happens when you don't examine, you drift. Testing is not arrogance. Testing is obedience. It's the humility to say, God, I want what is true, not what is comfortable. And the beautiful thing is that Scripture gives you the standard. The Bereans are praised in Acts for this exact reason. Acts. They received the word with all eagerness, examining the Scriptures daily to see if these things were so. Notice the balance. They were eager, they were open, but they examined. That's the posture of a healthy Christian, not cynical, not naive, eager and discerning. So what does that look like in everyday life? It means when you hear a claim about God, you ask, does this align with Scripture? It means when someone says, this is what God requires, you compare it to the gospel of grace, because the heart of Christianity is not earn your way up. The heart of Christianity is that Christ came down. Paul says, by grace you have been saved through faith, not a result of works. So if a message leads you into fear, bondage, or endless striving, test it. If a teaching denies the deity of Christ, test it. If a system cannot handle honest questions, test it. John tells believers, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. Say, that's not optional. That's spiritual survival. And here's the encouragement. When you test with sincerity, you're not pushing God away, you're seeking Him. Jesus said, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. God is not offended by the seeker. God welcomes the one who wants clarity. So hold fast to what is good. Hold fast to Christ. Hold fast to the word that endures. Because in a world full of noise, God has not left you without a lamp. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. And when you walk in that light, the truth doesn't shrink, it shines.